Hello and welcome back to the third rail. Today I thought I would cover collection management tools. And warning, this video might be a bit geeky for some. If you are familiar with the channel, you know that I collect Märklin model trains. This is a vast topic, so to give myself a goal to work to, and also keep my collecting in check, because things can easily get out of hands, I have narrowed down my theme to items produced during the 1980s. And I am working towards the goal of owning at least one example of each model that appeared in the yearly catalogues Märklin issued between 1980 and 1989. Once I had made my decision on a theme and a goal to follow, I then needed some reference information that I could use to start building up the collection. At first I did what everybody does, which is I got myself a copy of the various yearly Märklin catalogues for the period I was interested in, and I simply started ticking things off the catalogue. But I quickly realized this wasn't enough. Modifications made to certain model numbers over the years are very rarely documented in the catalogues. Fortunately for all Märklin enthusiasts, there is another source of information that can be used, and it's called the Koll Preiskatalog. It's a book that's been in circulation since 1978 and is updated yearly. It is meant to be used as a pricing tool, but the real value of this book, in my view, resides in the amount of information that's available against each variation of a given model. And you can use this information to precisely identify and date a given model. I invested in a compact version of the book, which is also the only version this book is issued these days. Over the years, there were numerous editions in larger formats, which were also illustrated. Any of these editions would be quite valuable for someone who is collecting older Märklin items. With my needs for reference information covered, I then needed a mechanism to track the items in the collection. So there I didn't look too far. I put my Microsoft Excel skills to good use and created a very basic workbook. That workbook contained first the items that I acquired, and then to keep track of the progress in the build-up of the collection, I also added all the items I needed to complete the collection. This gave me the ability to work off a single list. This basic approach worked well for a while, but I found myself having to constantly cross-reference items between my various information sources. It's not really a problem as such, but over time, and when you have to do it over and over again, this can become a bit tedious. So I kept an eye out for an all-in-one solution that would cover all the functionality I needed under one roof. There are quite a few open source projects around that cover the type of functionality I was after. They all work on the same principle. There is usually a central collaborative database which is used as a reference by the various functions provided by the site. And it's the central collaborative database which ends up being the weakest link, at least on the sites I've tried. Most of the time there are no data management processes in place or simple data integrity checks. As a result, the data quality suffers and the databases become filled with duplicate records over time. That's the best case scenario. What happens More frequently is that the records entered in the database are simply erroneous or missing critical information, which is not really what you want in a reference data repository. This aspect was critical to me, so I had to abandon the various tries and carry on with my semi-manual process for a while longer. This went on for a while until a couple of years ago, when I stumbled across a site called the Modelrailroadcollector.wiki. When I first came across this site, I thought, it's yet another collection management site that is not going to bring anything. But then I had a closer look, and it is actually somewhat different. First and foremost, it's a model train directory, and it's been developed with data integrity and accuracy in mind from day one. And as such, the data is very well managed and checked very regularly. Based on this solid data set, the site provides a collection management functionality, which has the ability to split collections between a own side and a want side. This gives a lot of flexibility in the management of collections and also allows a goal-oriented approach like the one I had chosen. The entire life cycle of articles in a collection can be managed from the purchase to the sale via the maintenance and servicing. There is a maintenance or servicing module available within the collection functionality of the site, and there is also a marketplace which allows to advertise that an item is for sale. All the data contained on the site is searchable both on the directory and collection side, either by means of free text search or by use of advanced filter in one shape or another depending on the type of list. Recently, a consist function has been added to the site. It allows the management of trains. These can be put together from items present in the model train directory, then kept as a private list or made public for everyone to see who accesses the site. The model train directory can be accessed by anyone in read-only mode. For any other more personalized feature on the site, registration is required. It's very easy. All that is needed is an email address and a password. You'll then get a little notification that access has been granted, and maybe even a nice welcome email from the developer and a bit of hand-holding if required. Collections are private, so are only accessible to the owner of the collection. There is a bit of functionality that allows a collection owner to share his collection with other registered users of the site if he or she so wishes. The data contained in collections can be exported in various formats, such as comma-separated, Microsoft Excel, or plain text. And as far as language support is concerned, the site is currently accessible in German, English and Spanish. The majority of the collectors using the site are Märklin collectors. So the model train directory reflects this fact, and the majority of the items there are Märklin items. The site covers the majority of the production since the 1940s, and new models are added pretty much immediately after the release date for new items is announced each year. Other brands are also represented, and the number is increasing as new collectors come on board. As far as performance and availability, I found the site to be reliable and perfectly adequate for my needs from this perspective. I'd be lying if I said that this was the quickest site on earth. It is definitely not, and one can experience a bit of lag here and there, especially on lists containing more than 1,000 records. But this has not been a problem for me, and we are only talking of a few seconds wait time in these cases. So if you were on the lookout for a tool to manage your large collection or growing collection, I can only recommend that you have a look at this site. I don't want to overload you with a lot of demo clips of the application. However, if you were interested, I've added a few of those at the end of this video as an appendix. You'll find links to the application and its YouTube channel in the description of this video. And that's it for now. So I'd like to thank you very much for watching. It's very much appreciated as usual. I'd also like to thank all the subscribers to the channel and those who have activated their little notification bell. It's all very rewarding and keeps me going. Thanks very much for now and see you soon on the channel. One of the most frequent uses I make of the site is the use of its data to identify the version number of a given model. So I'll take this little locomotive I just purchased as an example. For this locomotive, I already know a few things just based on its packaging. I know it's a 3086, which is a Series 64 of the SNCB. And I also know, because the box is blue and orange, that it's been produced sometimes in the 1970s, maybe early 1980s. I know there were several versions of this model produced over the years, and I don't know which one I acquired. So I'm going to turn to the wiki to find out. There I can click on the Model Train Directory menu, which is the core functionality of the site, choose the locomotive category and type in the model number in the quick search box on the right hand side, and I'll get a list of all the versions produced for this model. To further help identify the model, I can add a few fields to the view. Year introduced and year discontinued in this case, and I can see that the model's been produced between 1973 and 1981. If I highlight one of the models and click on the View button, I'll be able to access more detailed information about the model. I'll get information there such as the running number on the locomotive and the tender, some version-specific details, types of couplings, etc., etc., etc. All this should help me narrow down which version I acquired. So, looking at the thumbnails, I can already see that there are some differences there. So there were 4 models with a tender with 3 axles and 3 versions with a tender with 4 axles, and I've got the versions with a version with a 4-axle tender. So I know that one of my locomotives is one of those 3. So the top one is the 3986. This is not mine. The packaging would be different. So my locomotive is either a 3086 version 6 or a 3086 version 5. What's the version 6 like? So without raised signs. So where are the raised signs? Let's have a look at version 5. There's no information, but it tells me that it's like the 3086 version 3. So we need to go and reference the version 3. Alright, and let's have a look here. Here, raised embossed signs on the driver's cab. So, I know that I have a 3086 version 5 or 6, and to know which one I need to have a look at the locomotive itself to find out if it's got embossed signs or not. So back to the locomotive, let's have a look at the driver's cab from a bit closer. We've got no raised signs. This means we have a Märklin 3086 version 6. The information contained in the model train directory is available in read-only mode to anyone with an internet connection. But the site can also be used to manage a collection or some collections. The collection management functionality is only available to registered users. It's accessible via the My Collections menu at the top of the application. So if I click on the menu, I'll get to another screen where I'll see a list of the collections I have set up. The site organizes collections in lists, and there are two types of lists, a own type and a want list type. The own type is meant to contain, as the name implies, items that are already present in the collection, and the want list type is meant to be used for items which are yet to be acquired. In my case, I have two want lists. I have a main want list, a bigger one with 257 items, which contains items which I want to acquire in priority. And I've got a lower priority list, which contains items from which I already own one or the other version. So I'll take care of those once I have completed my higher priority list. Items can be added to collections from the directory only. So if we take the example of our 3086, for example, we'll go back to the model train directory under the locomotive category, and if I type 3086, I should get back the list of locomotives we saw earlier. And to add a locomotive to one or the other list, it's just a matter of selecting it by highlighting it in the directory, and then click on the little plus collection button at the top of the screen. I'll be presented with a little box with a few buttons associated with each of the lists I have under my collections. So I've already added the locomotive to one of my lists, the Märklin 1980s wanted list. This is where most of the items I acquire have already been added to. Let's switch back to my collections, and let's assume I've just ordered the locomotive we spoke about earlier. So I'm going to view my want list, and I'm going to look for the model 3086. So here it is, it's a 3086 version 6, which I was looking for. I've just ordered it, fantastic. And I can already enter a few bits of information before I receive it. I know at the time of purchase that I've bought an item which is boxed, so I can change the quantity of original packaging in the record to 1. I can put an order date, let's assume it was today, and I can say that I've acquired it on eBay, which I never do, but it doesn't matter. We're just looking at this as an example. So, and at this stage, I like to transfer my locomotive to my own list already. This will avoid me ordering another one of them. So my locomotive has arrived a bit later, and as it arrives I can then go to my own list and the way it's filtered, it's right at the top. So I'm going to edit the record and add a bit of additional information. So I had already entered that I ordered one, that the quantity of original, that it was boxed, and now I can look at grading it. So we've seen from the picture that it's in excellent condition. I wouldn't say that it's like new, but it's definitely excellent. I can put a received date. Let's assume it's the 3rd of November. If I had, if the locomotive was digital, I could enter its digital address already at this stage, and I can also put in some notes. Let's say, I don't know, I had noticed a little defect, a buffer missing or something like that. I would enter the information in here. Once I'm done with all this, I can update the record, and my item is now officially up to date in my own list. The collection management module can be used to track the maintenance, for example. So if I highlight my 3086 and click on the item maintenance button, I get to another screen, and then I can enter some various maintenance tasks. If it's not in the list, I can add some. Let's assume, for example, I have done a standard service. I can enter that and save it. It will appear in the list, and let's add another task. Let's say that I've had a running session and there is something wrong with the motor that I need to address at a later stage, so I'll mark it as to do and I'll save it. So now in my list I have tasks which I've completed with a little tick and tasks which are outstanding. I also have at the collection level, if I deselect my locomotive, a task list which will show me tasks I have performed on the collection, and as you can see I track the maintenance I do on my models in this module. It's very useful if you have a little issue at some point and you don't remember what you've done to an item. That might not happen too frequently if you have 10 locomotives, but if you have 100, it's a different story. So it's quite useful to keep track of this type of information.